Game over. It is game over.
Game over, cancer. I'm Val Solomon, Director of Program Impact at Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation.
And I'm Dana Nichols, Executive Director of CKC.
Game Over Cancer, a podcast dedicated to exploring conversations about pediatric cancer research, solutions, and inspiring family stories.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to creating innovative treatment options for kids fighting cancer and educating for change.
By creating a space for these conversations, we empower the community to take action and provide tangible hope.
Game over, cancer. Screw you, cancer. Today's episode is all about how to deal with a cancer diagnosis. When we started this podcast, we promised is sort of funny, and I don't know that always comes across, but there is
a heavy topic.
There's a heavy topic, and a lot of our cancer families, the support and the community really talk about like the dark humor that comes along with it. And today's guest has thrown her whole self into that world.
Yeah, she's got a whole business around it.
She's got a business. She's an artist. She has memes that go on up all the time, and for the few of us on staff, we don't even send them back and forth to each other because we know we've all seen them and think they're hilarious, and then we go, oh, did you see what she posted? So we are delighted that Chelsey Gomez from Oh You're So Tough joined us today, and our behind the scenes staff, especially Megan, had to come meet her. So she even fought the traffic, fought the parking, fought the get downtown just to sit and meet her. So we have had a delight. We hope you're all really excited about this conversation.
Enjoy.
Today's guest is a 2-time Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor. She's an artist who owns a non-traditional cancer brand called Oh You're So Tough, which emphasizes humor as a way to cope with cancer and chronic illness. She's cultivated a community on Instagram of cancer patients, caregivers, nonprofits, and more, and uses her art to advocate on behalf of the AYA community. She creates a space for everybody, leads a virtual art club, and brings people together. It's incredible. We are so excited to have her here today. I know that for me, being the point person for all breast cancer diagnoses ever has been exhausting and brutal, but my cherry on the awful ice cream sundae is you get to send all the memes. And she's the first thing I tell people to follow when they're talking to me about cancer stuff. So please welcome Chelsey Gomez of Oh You're So Tough.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Thank you for being here.
We're so excited.
Thanks for that epic introduction.
Yes.
I love it.
Shirts.
Amazing.
Yes.
Modeling.
Yeah.
We really felt like, our first celebrities on the podcast today.
My husband's always like, it's weird, like you walk into certain rooms and people know you, and then like when people stare at me too long in the store, I'm like, do you know? Just say hi.
So first and foremost, you can say hi to Chelsey.
Yes, exactly. Anytime, anywhere.
And if you were just joking about her being a celebrity, we were recording a different podcast right before this, and we mentioned Oh You're So Tough, and they're like, I love her. We're like, she's in the waiting room. And it was so fun.
We had a good moment. Yes. So let's dive into the tough topics.
Yeah.
No?
Let's find out why everybody loves her so much, including us.
Why does everybody love you?
Why
No.
do they?
So on Etsy, one of your designs says powered by trauma and dark humor. So we thought, let's just start there. Yeah. What are we powered by, or why?
Well, I'll give you the abridged version of my cancer experience. Notice I don't say journey because it's not a epic journey to a magical land. But so I had Hodgkin's twice. I got diagnosed at 28. My daughter was turning 3 at the time, so it was a huge adjustment in my life overall. And I had an oncologist that unfortunately was not too good and told me I had the best cancer ever, the good cancer, which there is no good cancer. Okay, write that down, everyone. It didn't end up being too good for me because it relapsed. I got diagnosed on the same exact day 2 years in a row.
Oh my God.
So like the universe is really like likes to troll me. So yes, I got
Oh my God.
So I went on to get, more treatment to get a stem cell transplant. And during the time of my transplant, I had a lot of complications. And the drugs that were new, like immunotherapy, they didn't work for me. They progressed my cancer. So I really started getting to a point where I was like, I've always felt positive, like not toxic positivity, but just like, hey, I feel like I'm going to get through this. And then at that point I was like, oh, maybe I'm not. So at that point I turned to the internet to kind of make people feel less alone or make something matter from what the experience was for more than just, me going through it. So I remember I like pulled my hair out on camera when it fell out again, because I that's the kind of stuff I wanted to see. Like, does it hurt, And so that really led for me to have a whole entire career based on speaking the truth about cancer, the really, uncomfortable parts, the stuff nobody talks about. And just to add on, for the universe is trolling me, I was supposed to have my stem cell transplant on March 31st. It got delayed due to COVID, and we were on lockdown in Florida. That was during the time. And it ended up being pushed to April Fool's Day.
Oh, gosh. You're like, will you stop, please?
Yeah, exactly. So that, I just always said that if I'm going to tell my story, it's not going to be how anybody else wants me to tell it. It's going to be how I want to. And I've always dealt with, I've had a really like upbringing of like a lot of different things, like not a great parent. One of my parents is not great. And the way I always dealt with it is just like, let me laugh at the situation, because I'd rather laugh than cry. Mm-hmm. And also when I started making designs, I was sick of just like all the ugly, like no shade if you have like her fight is my fight, but that was just never how I identified. I never felt like a warrior or brave or whatever. And so I was like, what do I really feel like? And so my first design was my lymph nodes are a-holes, because normally lymph nodes, they try to help you, but mine tried to kill me.
Yes.
So jerks. Yeah, so that's how I've always gone through life, is just really trying to be the funny one. And I think a lot of people who are funny have a lot of trauma and dark humor because, of what we've gone through. But I think it just makes you, a better person at the end of the day, because you can joke about it and laugh and make people feel seen.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I wonder were you interested in art and creative process prior to your diagnosis, or that was something you found afterwards?
So I had a very boring job. I was an insurance adjuster, and then I was an insurance adjuster, like supervisor, and I dealt with lawyers. I would argue with lawyers all day. I fell into that after college. I got a business degree. I actually wanted to be a social worker. I know, kind of. I guess
you are like a metaphorical,
metaphorical therapist, social worker. But my mom, how moms are, she's like, you're not going to make any money, and so I went to school for business, and then I moved to Atlanta for a short time. And then I ended up working at this insurance company and was not happy really, but I was working 70 to 80 hours a week.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And so basically I've always been creative. So my favorite part of working at that job was when I got to do PowerPoints, like make them cute or make posters. And so art really found me when I was really low. I was recovering from the transplant. It was during the pandemic. We were on lockdown. My daughter couldn't return to school. It was a way for me to take the thoughts from my head and put them on something else. And then when I shared them, it felt cathartic, because I was, you always think like, am I the only one that got ghosted by my friends? Am I the only one that was treated like this? Like, what did I do? Why am I a bad person? And then when I put that out there, like, hey, did anybody else get ghosted, or is it just me? And it's like, oh no, I do. And that felt really good. So I think it's really reconnecting with the inner child inside of me. I really believe that. I used to say like, oh, the person who I was before cancer, they died, like when I got cancer. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like the true person inside finally had space to come out and be like, hey, this is what little kid Chelsey would have always wanted to do.
That's so beautiful. And you share a whole lot about your experiences on Instagram. And you've mentioned a couple of times that it was during the pandemic, which I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably seems even more isolating. Is that something that you've felt, that online community really serving you as much as other people have found it to be exciting?
Absolutely. Like I always say that the cancer community online really saved me. And whenever I meet anyone, they're like, your page made me feel seen. It got me through this. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how much you guys just being there and seeing me and not thinking I'm weird or, strange for thinking these things or feeling these ways, it has healed me in a lot of ways. And there wasn't this when I was going through treatment. I was looking on Pinterest for like, hair regrowth like we all do, and it just wasn't there. And so the fact that we have so many different accounts and different, support groups and art club and all these cool things, like this year I got to put on Not Dead Yet Fest, which was a free concert for cancer patients. It was like I had that dream while I was sick in the hospital getting my transplant. Like, wow, wouldn't that be really cool? That girl in that hospital bed never thought any of this would have happened, and it really wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the people who have supported me. Like, I still interact with the people who bought my like tote bags I was making with my Cricut machine. Like when I first started my business, it was nothing like it is now. And I always still I write handwritten thank you notes anytime I send something out. I want to make sure people know, because it's like, you guys are making my dreams happen.
That's amazing. So I really want to talk about Not Dead Yet Fest because,
so cool.
But also I just think, like, to your point, everything you're doing is about healing and community. And like, I think it's so cool and so fun. So for anyone who doesn't follow you, which they should, so be signing up, guys, or go follow. You have a crown that says Not Dead Yet. And then you put on Not Dead Yet Fest. So tell us all about that, because I also would acknowledge that there's a huge difference between making art and selling things and having that boundary and barrier to, I'm going to run a live event across the country too, because it was not here.
No, it wasn't. It was literally on Hollywood Boulevard. It was at the Hard Rock on like right next to the Chinese Theater. So I had help. It wasn't just me. So We Got This is a charity that has a gift registry for cancer patients, or really anyone going through a hard time. The founder named Alyssa, we had our first meeting, and there was a person on the meeting that was like a music person that she knows. And her energy was just very, where I could tell that she wouldn't think I was nuts for having this idea. So I remember just being like, hey, before we get off the phone, I just have like this idea about this free concert. And it was very important to me. I'm very big on like, things need to be free for cancer patients. Like, we already have enough financial problems. And so I just, when I first got on Instagram, I got a very big dose of reality with like cancer coaches, like reaching out and pretending to be my friend. And then I very, like, not vaguely, but I very crystal clear remember how this woman was writing to me saying she related, and then was like, oh, here's where you can book to talk to me for an hour for $150.
Oh, gross.
It is so insane.
It really is. And I never wanted anyone to feel like that at all whenever they interacted with me. Like, in my husband, my therapist, everyone's like, you can't keep writing back to everyone and forever, Chelsey. And I'm like, watch me. Like, obviously there'll be a time, but I just remember being that person. So so Not Dead Yet Fest came out of that. My first idea was, I think it was Cancer Palooza was my first idea. Okay. And then it really didn't feel authentic to like my brand, because those Not Dead Yet crowns, once again, came sort of from the community. So I made a drawing of that on Salty Sunday, which is a series I do every week. And they're like, hey, could that crown actually be real? And I'm like, I don't know. So I got my husband, who's a lot more technical than I am, and he figured out how to turn my art literally into something tangible. And so that was a big part of Not Dead Yet Fest. Everyone got a crown. Everyone got free shirts. We had Lindsay Sterling there. I was able to get some people back to meet her. And it was such a healing night, because I got to hug people in person, because, doing stuff on social media is great, but you don't, like, I'm so glad to get to talk to you in person. Yeah. It's only because we're nearby, but it'll be so many times. It's like, where are you? I want to hang out, and I have like a card in my store that says, it's not fair that my cancer bestie lives so far away. And that's really like how it happens in the cancer community. So those times when we can come together are really special.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that really resonates too with the parents of kids with pediatric cancer too. They're often, one of the first things a parent will talk about wanting to know when their kid is diagnosed is, I need to be introduced to a survivor. I want to talk to the parents of kids who have been through this. I want to relate with somebody. And sometimes they don't live anywhere near you. And so an online community is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're a parent, especially in this population, it is difficult sometimes to me, like, it's different than being a parent of a cancer kid, but it's still, you have parenting challenges. And so me having a kid, I've always been kind of different than others, because a lot of people don't have children, and whether they choose to or they can't because of cancer. And so I've always been mindful of that. When I do any of my content, I definitely want to acknowledge, these people, and, not bring up like, you know, the triggering topics, not bring up that. And I have always tried to forge a community that involved everyone. So it wasn't just cancer patients, it wasn't just survivors. It was, you know, like you guys, like I've had plenty of friends that are parents of cancer kids, and just it was eye-opening to hear some of the stuff that you guys go through. Like, you know, when people who share their story publicly with their child, you know, when they start getting better, it's like people just disappear, and, you know, highlighting things like that really happen that people think don't happen. It's like, yes, it does. And, you know, these people need support, not just in the beginning, but also in the end and beyond.
Yeah, I think that's so much for us what this podcast is for, is those gaps in conversation past the, oh, we had a little child who lost their hair and rang the bell and did this and that, and now we move forward, because everyone does move forward. Our families do move forward. And at the same time, it looks nothing like that very nice gift wrapped story that would be in a movie, right? And so we're always looking for that space, that conversation that hasn't happened. And I feel like that's very much what your community is for as well, in a really, really beautiful way, and brings so much to people. I wondered if you wanted to talk to a little bit of, like, for our families who are either going through treatment or post-treatment, who maybe could see art as healing, but are like, well, I'm not an artist. I'm not this. Do you know what I mean? Like that idea. I remember when I was in high school art class, they were like, well, if you can write the alphabet, you're an artist. And most people would be like, no. So I thought maybe you'd speak to that, because I feel like art is so healing and something everyone can do. And I think that's a lot of your message with your art club.
Yeah, I never thought I was an artist before I became one. You know, when I tell people I'm a professional artist now, it still doesn't like roll off the tongue like what I am. Like I look around. But I would say that everybody's art is unique. Like if you look at my art, it's not Van Gogh, it's not Picasso, but it has its own style. And I've always just remained authentic to what I wanted to make. I didn't, you know, sometimes I do very demure trends, but other times,
very respectful.
Yeah, it's very respectful, mindful, demurtsy. But I always just do what I think is authentic to me. So that's what I would say. Like when we have art club and people are really nervous about showing their art, I'm like always blown away that what people show that they think is not good, or I'm like, whoa, I would have never thought of how to do that. So I have a book that's called Oh, You're So Creative, and it's a bunch of art prompts, and it leaves it very open for people to use their own style. So when people tag me in those, I'm like, wow, because everyone's perspective is so unique. And so even if you don't share it with anyone, I think that's another thing. People see me and they're like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to be sharing my innermost thoughts, which valid. But you don't have to show anyone. And it's more than even just like drawing or anything. You could do poetry. You could write it down. You could do so many things to just, like I said, you need to just take it out of your head and move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's also good, I think, because you can go back and read how you've kind of or see how you kind of progress. Like if you see my art in the beginning, a lot of it is a bit more sad or dark or, you know, more serious than a lot of the things I do now, because I have healed in a lot of ways. I'm still a work in progress, but I think, you know, putting it out there has really helped me, and it's also helped other people. So I'll tell you a unique situation that I came across was I met somebody before they ever had cancer. They had chronic illness. So they followed me, which is cool. I think they're pretty much like, I always say like they're the other wizarding school, the chronic illness, because we call it cancer muggles. I'm like, they're the other wizarding school. So very similar to us. So she was diagnosed after she had already been following me. And it was cool because like almost every week she would say, hey, guess what? I'm going to mark this one on my bingo chart. I had the good cancer. Like, let me mark it off. Or my friend ghosted me. And these traumatic things, they turn into something that like was expected, even though it shouldn't be expected. Like we should deserve better. But she didn't feel as devastated by it. And I felt really happy about that, because I was like, wow, like that was me at one point, this person here living all these things, thinking that I was so alone. Like how amazing would it have been to know that somebody out there would have been like, no, like it's not you.
Yeah.
And she is in survivorship now, and she's gone through relapse scares, and I've been there like the whole time and seeing the impact of just these conversations, like you're saying, they're important and they do make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned it a little bit before, but I feel like a lot of this comes out maybe in your Salty Sunday sessions. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I have an art series. It's been going on like 4 years now. It's called Salty Sunday and WTF Wednesday. And how this happened was there are a lot of crazy stories. And even there are cancer parents that send things in, caregivers, and people were telling me these insane stories. I mean, they're not insane because they're normal in the cancer world, but they're insane to outsiders. So these things that they wanted to tell their story, but like I said, not everybody wants to be public about it, and I respect that. And so I thought, what can I do to give people a space to be able to tell these stories? And so I'm really inspired by Post Secret, if you're familiar with that, where people send in their secrets. So I said, I'm going to take my own twist on that. And like, I'm going to take everyone's submissions and I'm going to draw my interpretation of it. And a lot of times the submissions are very heavy. Most of them are. And so I try to balance it with like, not art that diminishes what they're going through, but art that's just like, okay, that's or like just like little funny characters. Yeah. And so so twice a week I put those out, and I always tell people, like people will be like, I'm scared to share this. My Aunt Sharon might disown me. And I'm like, it's okay, you can tell Aunt Sharon it was just me. It wasn't you. Yeah. And so I've taken on a lot of that role. Like I will be the one to say it out loud. I'll be the one to tag the insurance company, call out the, use of funds on things. Like there was I don't know if you guys even know, but there was a campaign a couple of years ago where this company like put on bald caps, like as their like a day of like celebrating cancer patients, but it was very performative and just crazy. And so we actually ended that campaign through social media. Like we said how it makes us feel. And so there's tangible change that can happen.
Yeah. I love the idea that people can release the weight of their thoughts because it's so true. And I think, sometimes something's happening or our families, a cancer family will tell us like, well, yeah, my son's in this grade. And now everyone was like, well, I don't want my kid to be friends with your kid. What if your kid dies? And like people don't believe us when we, hear all these stories over and over again. And then when you are that person, that's us sharing a story about someone else. And then when you are that person, it feels like so isolating. And to have a place to go is really a gift. And I think, like you said, for people in the future who will be diagnosed or go through this to know, okay, well, it's horrific, but I'm not the only one. And for people that it's current, it's like there's a place for me in that.
Yeah. And I think that it's just, I'd struggle sometimes with that project. I'll just be honest, just because I sometimes wonder, like, is it doing what I intended to do? Is it – because some of it's very heavy. And so I always put, like, a cover page to warn people, or if there's specific triggers, I call them out. But, I've always said, like, I'm not going to do it anymore when I feel like it's not helpful. And so I'll go through these things where I'm like, I don't know, because there'll be, like, a person that comments, like, oh, this is the worst thing I read today or whatever. And that's valid. Probably it is, But it's like you're saying, it's somebody's lived experience. So it deserves to be told, and it needs a place. And so a lot of times it's cancer muggles that come by and comment on like, oh, they meant well when they told you they didn't want, what it's like, no, they didn't. And I'm going to say so. And so I think that, just being able to be honest and I've always, like, I used to take all the submissions in my DMs. So that was a lot. And so now I've moved it to a Google form. And there are people who are in the Google form that will literally be like, hey, I don't actually want you to post this. I just wanted to tell somebody. And so they put it there. And I had the sweetest comment the other day. I cried. This person said, my son passed away from cancer, but on occasion I'll see his submissions pop up I could tell that it was him. And it's like he said hi to me from like heaven. And I was like, oh my God. Like I never like expected this little silly like blame me for all your problems like project to become what it is. And it's just really special to me. And there's been people who in like the chronic illness community that have adopted this type of thing and came to me and said like, can I do it? And I'm like, yeah, because I'm not a gatekeep. Like you can do and tell any story you want because it's valid.
That's amazing.
And I think it's really important because those are obviously, and they're heavy stories, so it's probably harder to tell them, but to have them not tempered, but to have them produced by you as in an art form with an appropriate label so that we're like, I think it's a way to get the story out, and it's a way to make a really difficult topic, not more palatable, but less traumatic maybe. And it's just so beautiful that through your project that folks are able to do that.
Yeah, and I get a lot of, I mean, when I first started out, I would get like a couple, maybe 10 submissions a week, but I get a lot a week. And, some people, say like, oh, where's mine? And da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, besides just being one human being doing it, sometimes I don't have a way to capture what somebody has gone through.
Yeah.
Like and I don't want to force it because I don't think it's doing them any justice to their story. So I literally never delete any submission until I've drawn it. So I have submissions that are 4 years ago that I just, every time I go back to them, I just don't have a way to put their story out there. But I read every single one. So that's what I always tell people, like, even if you're not seeing it on my page, it still matters to me. Your story matters to me. I read them. I take them in. And, whether it gets drawn or not, I hope that just having a place that's safe to tell these things to somebody, I hope that makes a difference to them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of my questions for you hearing this is just, so how do you I don't know if it's create a boundary or how do you keep yourself sane then? Because you've got your life to go through, you've got your own survivorship to deal with, and you're doing a wonderful, noble thing to take on so many people's stories. But how do you keep that from sinking your mental health in some way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think about a year and a half ago, I was like at the point where I was feeling it a lot because I am like a big fixer person. I want to fix everything, make everything better. And the reality is in this community, there's a lot that can't be fixed by, I wish I just had a magic wand to wave it. So that was weighing on me. So I started going to therapy. I found an amazing therapist that actually ended up having the same cancer as me at one point, and they had a transplant. Like they didn't have that on their profile, nothing. So it was totally meant to be. And she really helped me to see that just my content itself is a form of support. I was very much focused on like, I need to reply to every single person. I need to put all these, effort into it, advice, like as if I am, like, cause, being a therapist, cause kind of, I'm like a cancer friend, but, and so I realized through therapy that there was different ways I could protect myself as far as wanting to do this long term. So it's nothing against, I love connecting with the people, but it is heavy. And like I do black screens for people who pass away. And so, sometimes I get like 3 of those in a day and it's like, ugh. And so, so through therapy, I've learned ways so I made that form to kind of take it away from telling me directly. So I didn't have to like form all these responses because I would have 20 of these terrible stories, that are in my DMs that are, need to be heard. But like, what do you say back to some of these things? There's just nothing to say other than like, I love you, want to give you a hug. And like, I'm not in person, so I can't just give you a hug and listen. I have to say something. And so, doing that. And like I said, focusing on other things that I can do for the community. So I'm part of a lot of different research projects now. And so I've kind of felt like my role in the community, I still have like the community cultivator role, but then I'm kind of taking it more on a larger scale to say, how can I impact the community on a larger space? So like, right now, I'm in that research study. I've done a lot of redesigns for patient materials because I think that is a big area of opportunity. Like no scary binders, no giant side effects list. Like we can do this nicer. Like you said earlier, something like I try to take the material that might be scary or upsetting and put it in a way that wouldn't scare people when they read it. So like palliative care. For so long, I thought it was like hospice. No, it's not. And so I made a little graphic, just like some rainbows, some happy faces talking about what it actually is. And I remember people being like, whoa, thank you. I'm going to reach out and get this help because I shouldn't be suffering like with this pain or this, thing. And so just finding a way to offer these topics, but like you guys are doing on the podcast, it's very approachable. You can listen and it's not like so heavy, like, oh, here's a bald kid. Like, the reality is people just kind of shut down sometimes when they're not in this world and they're confronted with these things.
Yeah. There's a reason it's so difficult to talk about. It's difficult to live through and it's difficult to treat. It's difficult to experience. And, that's why all of this is so important.
And people think it can't happen to them, but it's like it does and can happen to anyone at any time. Like I think I heard a quote like a while ago that was like, being disabled was the only like group that you can just like join like right away, like in a minority group. Like you could be that person tomorrow. And so I think that it's important to learn, what is okay to say to people, what isn't okay to say to people. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I mean, well, it's like, and if you do, and I believe that you do, it's okay to learn how to do better.
Right.
Yeah.
I 100% in every aspect of any life. Once you know better, you do better, right? And so I think too, and one of our staff, Megan, has been huge in this, is like the dump out, not in.
Yeah.
And like talks about that a lot and talks about that with people. And I think it's true, is like, don't bring into the child, to the cancer patient, what your intentions are and you meant well and put that all on them.
Yes.
Dump out. They're the one who are in treatment. And so you can tell your friend, oh, I meant well and I didn't realize. Yeah. That's fine. Talk about that with somebody else, not with the child who's in cancer treatment.
And that's the energy that honestly, it comes to my page a lot of times from people passing by that aren't part of this community. Like, you shouldn't be writing these things because it's dividing people. You should be bringing people together and understanding. And it's like, at what point does the patient not have to be the understanding one every time, or the parent or whomever is going through the hard time? Like, your incident is one incident out of so many that we experience. So it's like, if I'm always having to be the understanding one and I'm also the one going through the hard time, like, what? I recently did a post about that because I just got so tired of seeing those comments. Like, I meant well. Well, you can mean well and still do something crappy. Like, like it's
that cause harm.
Yes. And it's like, and it's not, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but like, this is why I'm putting this information out there so you can do better. And it's not a shaming thing. Like, I have some people who are friends of cancer patients that will write to me like, oh no, I said this to this person. I said, it's better that you said anything, because the most pain is when people just stop talking to you completely. I'm always like, say the wrong thing. We can talk about that. But if you just completely ghost them, then that is so hurtful.
Yeah, say the wrong thing is beautiful. Just say something. But then listen and be actively engaged with someone so you can move forward to the right thing.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're not open to that, what are you doing? You're not really supporting them. It's really for you then, if you're not open to hearing that. And that's with anything in life, like any type of person that you approach. Like, hey, if somebody tells you that you hurt their feelings, you can't say that you didn't.
Right. Your intention does not equal your impact, and intention can be very different things. Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I was better at remembering phrases, but that's okay. One phrase I was going to say.
Words.
I don't remember. We know, very demure of you.
I was going to say one phrase I do remember is, because it has the word fuck in it, is that you're in your fuck cancer era.
Yes.
I love this.
We love it. I'm a Swiftie. I bother Val often about that.
I love it.
We love it. But we think, like, one, we love a fuck cancer era. And then two, I think even for us, even when we're naming this podcast, we put the expletive in the word cancer because we're like, that's the bad word. And when we talk about like dark humor and coping, and then also I love an F word. And like, I think, just moving past the bullshit and being able to just be out there, like that all goes hand in hand. And so we made a note about it in our notes.
And we're like,
there's no question
we
there.
can finally explain the asterisks.
It's like, that's the bad word, right?
Yeah, and that's true. And I think, I've had people write to me on Etsy like, I was going to buy a card from you, but it has the F word, or I didn't like what you did. And it's like, that's okay, honey. It's not for you. Then.
Right.
Like, and that actually, you'll probably love this story. So when I first started sharing on Instagram, I had a friend that was, one of those friends that was like checked in on me here and there, pretty good friend. She wrote to me and was like, I hate everything you're doing. Absolutely hate it. Like, you should be so grateful when people write on your status thoughts and prayer. Like.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I remember just telling her like, this isn't for you. And like, imagine and think about that. Like, if you get approached with something like that, if you want to start something in your life and somebody approaches you like that, don't listen to that. Because if I had listened to that, where would I be? I wouldn't be here right now from one person's judgment. And I said, you're not living it. So you don't really get to weigh in on whether or not you like it or not. You can unfollow.
Sounds like she took that shit personal. Like, did you
did.
make a post about people who ghost you and then criticize you?
She did. It was so funny. She bought something from my store because I recognized her name 2 years ago, I think. And I was thinking, okay. Like,
I
I said,
thank
you, smiley face. Like, that was it. Like, I don't have time for that. And that's one thing I think you guys probably feel the same. Like, once you go through something like this or deal with it, you just have so much less tolerance for, like, people just being like that. It's just like, okay, like, don't disturb my peace. You know, like, I'm good. It's fine. I'm going to be who I am. And if you don't like it, then.
But I would like disclaimer to the world out there that, oh, I heard this thing once. If you don't have something nice to say, don't
people forgot
say it.
Stop typing it onto
Especially
social
to
media.
a cancer patient.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's shocking to me. I guess people's audacity is always shocking to me and not. But I think that there's not a lot of jobs where someone just gets to write in, I hate everything you're doing.
Yes.
Like, who cares? Who
Exactly.
cares?
I hope no one gets any ideas on this podcast.
Guys.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, it was such, and I really had a hard time with that one because she was such like the person that portrayed herself as like, you know, so supportive, so amazing, so like virtuous. Yeah. And then that was her, you know, venom really in my private place. Like, if you're going to call me out, I have more respect for people who do it public, like in the comments than like DMing or saying that it was well-intentioned. And it's like, no, you're just being mean.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't write any rude comments on this podcast.
Just be nice.
We only want good feedback.
Just be nice. But it's just like, it's fine. Constructive criticism is fine. And I've learned a lot. Like, you know, I've gotten ideas for things or, you know, adjust certain, like trigger warnings on black screen. Somebody wrote in. And so a black screen, if you don't know what you're listening, is where we honor somebody who passed away. We put up a black screen. And so somebody said to me one time, can you put a trigger warning? Because some days I just can't see it pop up. And so, and I've done that ever since. And I've had people who've said like, hey, thank you, because some days I just can't see it. And that's totally valid. And so I take in legitimate suggestions, but all others.
But critiques of,
like that,
I don't like this.
Yeah, just like I hate everything about you. I'm like, okay, cool.
You don't have to watch it.
Yeah, that's really cool of you.
But if you do want to watch it, if you do want to follow, where should everyone go find you?
So my username is Oh You're So Tough on literally every like social media platform, I think. Except for Snapchat, but I don't even use it for much. But I'm mainly on Instagram. I have an Etsy shop of the same name. And if you just want to go and have like a good laugh about chronic illness and cancer, you can go to my shop and see it. But yeah, I'm getting more into more like I used to be like a big YouTube person back in the day. And so I'm getting back more into that and kind of just following more of like my creative passions. And I think setting those boundaries and things that we talked about have allowed me to do that. And like working on Not Dead Yet Fest, that was a huge project. And so if I had been taking on everything I used to take on, I couldn't have made that happen. And so, and I tell people that too. It's like, it's okay to say that it gets a little bit tiring to be an advocate all the time.
For sure.
And you guys probably feel that too. It's like some days you just don't want to think about cancer at all. And other days you can't shut up about it. So it's like, you know, I live in that place somewhere in between where I'm like, you know, but I'll talk to anyone about it if it means making things better for the next generation of people that come through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough. This is a delight. Thank you so much for coming. Everyone truly should go follow Oh You're So Tough. And if you want to support the research we're doing that makes things better for all of our cancer patients and all of our children, you can make a gift on our website. If you know a researcher, you can also go to our website and see how to apply for grants at cannonballkidscancer.org.
Thank you for joining us at Game Over Cancer. We would like you to leave an honest review and share.
A nice, honest review.
A pleasant, honest review. And also please share, because the more reviews and the more shares we get, the more we can educate for change.
So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your commitment to our fight. I'm Dana Nichols.
And I'm Val Solomon.
Until next time, we'll see ya later.
Join us as we transform fear into courage and turn adversity into opportunities for change.
If you want to be involved in the conversations that create change in the world of pediatric cancer, take a moment, share, like, and subscribe.